Hi, this is Era, the host of the Telmo Creator Podcast, where I learn about, celebrate, and discuss hot topics with creators from all over the world.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hi, everyone. This is Era, your host. As you know, I've been working really hard to get great guests and deliver good content to you. Now, I need your help with three things. Number one, give this podcast a 5 out of 5 review on whatever platform you're listening to, whether it be Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts. Number two, please sign up for the newsletter. There'll be special benefits for just newsletter followers. And follow all our social media platforms. Really want to get the word out to a growing audience. And number three, join the VIP fans program, where you will get benefits like personal shoutouts on the podcast, producer credits, and the chance to speak with me one-on-one and or private group discussions with guests I've had on the podcast. That's awesome, right? So get more details on my website at thetelmocreator.com or reach out to me at hello@thetelmocreator.com. Thank you, guys.
But yeah, you can hold your own.
I feel like I can hold my own. So when I go to the Telmo store, like if I go to a Babu's, I place an order. So I say, I'm not going to, should I even say, I feel like you make fun of me, but okay. Like,
No, 설렁거.
so see, look, your Tamil, so like, I feel like you have the accent down, even though like, so when I go, when I go to the Tamil store, I'm like, Babu's, I'm like, what do you want? Like, and I'm like, auntie, can I have, I say, no, what do I say? Auntie, எனக்கு 3 rose குடுக்கலாமா? And then she, so she understands what I'm saying. She's like, any rose one? I'm like, oh, mutton rose, couldn't go, please.
Yeah.
So that's what I say. And if they don't understand, I do a little bit of a nod.
Yeah, that
you know,
adds the Tamil factor.
And they're like, oh yeah, he's like, they're like, okay,
he's legit.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I do. All right, guys. Well, you heard a little bit. We were kind of connecting, and Tanya, I was trying to like warm her up before we kind of got into it, but she's warming me up actually. So we're just chatting about whose Tamil's better, and obviously hers is. So I'm gonna welcome everyone. So this is another episode of the Telmo Creator. My name is Era. I'm the host, and today I have an awesome guest. I was pretty excited to kind of have her on. Her name is Tanya Yoganathan. I call her social media or Instagram famous. She doesn't think she's famous on Instagram, but I think she is, especially in the Tamil social media world. Just for kind of being authentic, just being yourself and, growing kind of her following. And, she's launched a business as well, but I don't want to take up too much of her thunder. But at a high level, I always like to mention how I know the guests. And, we're talking about it before, and I feel like, Tanya just said is kind of through like a TSA, some like the TSA world, like in university. I don't exactly remember, but
Okay, wait. Then you gotta wait. You gotta tell them about what TSA is. You got a worldwide following, Not everyone knows TSA.
You know what? I'll do a better thing. I'll tell Tanya to tell the story of how we may be connected, because I feel like I feel like she's got the energy to kind of carry this. I'm like low energy. She's high energy. This is perfect.
I'm very high energy.
So Tanya, why don't you tell the people where we think we potentially connected?
I don't know, but I feel like it's probably, possibly, definitely through something of TSA. And for those of you who don't know what TSA stands for, most universities in and around Canada have a TSA, which is the Tamil Students Association. And Aravindan was quite involved. I was quite involved. I feel like we may have met for the tsunami fundraiser that happened in TSA.
Yes.
During the planning stages for that back in 2004, I guess.
Don't date us. That's
wow. Probably. And so I think that's where we would have met. And so Aravindan started in the TSA realm and then went on to the Tamil culture realm. He became the Tamil culture guy, and then he's the Tamil date guy, and he's the Tamil creator guy. He's just like the Tamil, and yet he sits here saying that his Tamil isn't that great. Like, how is that even possible? Yet, so much of that is within you and like part of who you are and what you do. It's crazy.
I think it comes down to confidence. I think I don't like to speak publicly in front of people, but I'm working on that. I feel like speaking a language, even though it should have been my native tongue, I think that's part of it. I think it's confidence. Maybe my Tamil is better than I think it is.
Yeah.
Because my mom understands me. There's older like Tamil people that understand me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's confidence.
Yeah, definitely is.
Yeah.
Right?
So
It's like when my brother used to pick up the phone back in the day when people would call for Amma and they'd be like, oh, Amma would pay the grabo. And he'd be like, Amma would, and then they start laughing right away. That like killed his confidence, right? Like he's not even going to want to give it a shot if you're
yeah,
like shooting him down before he gets a sentence out, right?
agreed.
And so, yeah, I think confidence definitely has a lot to do with it. You just have to stop caring about what other people think, and your Telmo will just like exponentially grow.
Yeah, I think I normally don't, but I feel like I think it's like when you know somebody is better at something, you kind of like I feel a little shy. Say it's Tamil or say it's some other skill. Like if somebody's really good at public speaking and they're in the
Yeah.
audience, I'm like, oh, I feel
How
like
am I going to speak in front
yeah,
of this
yeah,
guy? Yeah.
exactly. It's kind of like
Yeah,
that.
for sure. Or maybe you have this like overwhelming pressure because you are the Tamil guy, you're the Tamil culture guy,
Maybe, maybe.
The Tamil date guy, the Tamil creator guy. Is like, how can he do all this but he not talk? So if you don't talk, then they don't have an opportunity to make that judgment.
You're not really helping by accentuating the fact that I'm supposed to be Tamil date guy, Tamil culture guy. You're not really helping, but uh,
No pressure, no pressure.
so you can kind of get a sense of why I wanted to get Tanya on the podcast. Awesome personality, great presence, stage presence. So maybe I'll share quickly a little bit of about Tanya, and really I want to make this really more about her, as she's more interesting than I am. So Tanya is, like I said, she's well known on social media, but recently, I would say about a year ago, she launched a business called Her Sons and Stars. It's an
Her
e-commerce. Her
son
son,
and
sorry,
star.
Her Son and Stars, and it's an e-commerce business. It's really around customize. It started with customized blankets, but she's kind of slowly diversified. I'll let her talk more about it, why she started it, and I want to focus the conversation on that. But there's obviously so much more to Tanya than, her e-commerce business, and we'll talk about that today. But why don't we just let Tanya talk, and then I'll just ask some more questions. So Tanya, tell the people who you are, and we'll go from there.
So so one thing I will go back to what you said before about being Instagram famous. Now, so famous, if you're looking at it as a word in general, I
Yes.
guess in all pure technicalities, as a person with like a 30,000 plus following, like I guess a person who is famous is someone who is recognizable, right?
Yes.
That is fine. I think you use like a different word that made me feel intimidated. Either it was probably either celebrity, which I do not like, or influencer, which I also do not like, because
Okay.
famous is technically true, but celebrity is definitely not there. I don't think you use that. Probably influencer, because that's commonly used in the
Yes.
Instagram world. The only reason I personally don't use that, at least for me, I don't think I'm an or like I don't want to be an influencer. Let's just say I just want to go there, say stuff that I like, say stuff that I don't like, and be like, you do what you will with that. I don't want to go on there and like, other than buying my blankets. Yes, you should buy my blankets. My blankets are dope. That is something I want you to influence. I want to influence you to do. Beyond that, I just want to give like my genuine opinion. Like, this musician is awesome. You can check him out. Like, you should check him out, but you do with that what you will, kind of thing. I feel like yeah.
I'll only add, I agree with you. I don't like the term influencer. I feel like it's thrown around a lot, but
Yes.
technically an influencer is somebody who influences. And I feel like you have an audience, like you might not think it's large, but it's larger than most people.
Oh, absolutely.
And also you're very authentic and you share your opinions on various topics. And
To a fault.
and you might influence, whether you think it's good or bad, somebody's opinion of something. So whether
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you did like an Insta live with oh my goodness, Dr. Vana
CTMA, Kanna.
Kanna, yeah, you did with
Dr.
Kanna, and like it was really around like kind of COVID and like just misconceptions, all of that. So I agree with you. I don't like that term influencer, but you are, I guess the correct term is you are well known in the Tamil community and you do have influence. So I wouldn't say you're an influencer, but I would say
Yeah.
you do potentially have influence over like a significant population. Especially, yeah,
So aside from me dissecting grammar and terminology,
yeah.
I guess I started on Instagram a long time ago, maybe about 2015. So about 6 years for my own page. But my husband runs a photography company. He's a wedding photographer. His name is Impressions by Anuj. We started on that account probably about 10 years ago. And
Sorry,
we
fun fact about Anoch, by the way, for those of you listening,
y'all know each
he
other too.
yeah, I know him from high school, but
High
also
school.
he also, yeah, from high school, and he also helped shoot my wedding as well. I don't know if you knew
That
that.
is right.
Yes,
That
yes,
is right. That's
yes,
right. You booked Vipu, right? Ovin?
yes, yes.
Yeah, but Anu shot with her. So
It
you
was
kind of
crazy. I got two amazing photographers. I was like, oh, this is crazy.
yeah, that is good. Yeah, so we started Impressions by Nuge back in 20, I think we had an account in like 2012. And so back then we did kind of personal and business on the same page. And then after a couple of years, we're like, okay, we probably need to separate it. And then I started my own page up until last year, like you said. I started my business, which is Her Sun and Stars, customization business. We have kind of different gifts you can get for yourself or for someone that you love. We have blankets, cutting boards, baby blocks. There's a lot. It's kid centric, but not kid exclusive. I would say there's a lot of products in there that can be for adults as well.
I don't want to try to influence you guys, but I'm gonna get those blocks. I've been waiting for them, so I will be placing an order. So
Out of and then the influencer.
a question I had for you when you
Yeah.
first told me about this business, I think you were kind of, you did the pre-launch, you're kind of building a buzz towards it. And then when I found it was a customization business, I thought two things. I was like, number one, smart, because it's hard. So when I think something's hard, I think there's a barrier to entry. So less people will try to do it. But
Yeah.
two, you said you had processes kind of set up so that the customization part wouldn't be as difficult as, once you kind of got things rolling. So I'm very curious, like what made you want to do customization and what are these processes, if you're allowed to share anything around
Yeah.
making that
Yeah,
easier?
for sure.
Yeah.
So, what made me want to do customization, I guess what happened was I had purchased personalized blankets for my kids, right? And I think my daughter was napping and she had her blanket on her, and I was gushing over my adorable child. And I was like looking at the blanket and I was like, it was, I think, a floral pattern or something. And I was like, man, I really wish that one of my signature designs is the Karthikeya, right? Very, very important to a lot of Tamil people who are from the northeast of Sri Lanka. And so I was like, I would have loved if I had that option. And instead of her name Meenakshi in English, since it is a Tamil name, I would have loved to have it in Tamil. And then I stopped and I thought, I was like, yeah, that's a really good idea. Someone should do that. And that actually brought me back to something that happened with my cousins. So we were together at a cottage. Actually, this is funny because this is something I wanted to talk to you about, because this was my answer that I said in my Tamil culture interview, but it has since evolved, and I will tell you why. So I was with my cousins at the cottage. Somebody like spilled water or something, and one person was like, oh, someone should go get a sponge. And cousins will be straight up with each other, and my other cousin was like, why someone? Why don't you go do it, right? And that's so, like, it kind of just stuck with me, right? Like, why did she say, oh, someone should get a sponge? Why didn't she just get up and get a sponge if she knows that it was needed? And so right when I looked at my daughter, I was like, oh, that would be a really good business idea. Someone should do that. That memory kind of came back and like triggered in my mind. And I was like, wait, why someone? Why not you? Right. And so like my cousin is not mushy gushy at all, but like right before the launch of the business, I called him up. This is like a year and a half after this incident happened. And I was just like, oh my God, thank you. Without you, I probably would never have started this business. That one moment made a huge difference. And he kind of rolled his eyes completely at me, wondering why I'm making such a mountain out of a molehill. And then just about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, do you know the show Curb Your Enthusiasm? It's a show on HBO.
No, I've heard about it, but it's like The Office. It's like a show that I've heard about. People watch it, but
You
I have
don't,
not.
you
No,
have not seen the, oh,
no.
that's,
The
I
Office,
had a certain opinion of you before that opinion, and that has just gone down now.
and I'm listening. I'm just my mic for whatever reason got.
It's not saying so.
It's sorry, 1 second.
No, that's
I don't
fine.
want to seem like I'm distracted. It's just like why did
But you are distracted.
I am distracted only because the mic was falling and I was like, this is awkward.
That's not good.
All right, sorry, go ahead. Yes. So Parks and Rec, no, you said
No.
Curb Your Enthusiasm. Yes.
Curb Your Enthusiasm. So Curb Your Enthusiasm is a show created by Larry David, who was one of the co-creators of Seinfeld.
Yes. Great show.
Seen
That was,
Seinfeld?
That's like one of my favorite shows.
Okay, so if Seinfeld's one of your favorite shows, you should watch Curb Your Enthusiasm because it's made by the same creator. He acts and talks just like Jerry Seinfeld, but also it's kind of like Seinfeld, but rated R. Like they swear, they show a bit of nudity.
Did you like Seinfeld?
I love Seinfeld. If
Okay.
we're gonna have a Seinfeld versus Friends conversation and you go one way, like this podcast is done and over.
Wait. Before
I
we
get heated debates in my DMs about my hatred and loathing of the Friends show.
before we go and you explain the story, because I want to hear the story. What's your favorite Seinfeld episode of all time?
Ooh, the Seidler, maybe. I think it's an underrated one. Or the beach. No, the beach. The like the marine biologist one. The beach.
I don't remember that one. Which one is that?
George pretends to
yes,
be the marine biologist.
Yes.
The golf on the beach and Calvin Klein, and that was such a great one. The nose picking and everything. Brilliant.
So many great concepts. Like I remember the Buttman, I think, or the Buttman one.
Yeah.
That was a good one. Yeah. And then the whole concept of the what do they call it? When like the distance between the parents, like the buffer zone.
The buffer zone.
The buffer zone. Yes.
That was a great one. Yeah, a lot of the ones with George's parents are fantastic. Or the one anyone with Newman are phenomenal as well. So this is exactly like that. So you know how the premise of Seinfeld is there 4 like completely different stories that somehow at the end come together so brilliantly and perfectly.
Yes.
It's the exact same thing. It's like Larry David got bored after being retired for a while and decided to just start up the exact same show again.
Interesting.
It's so smart, so funny. You should definitely watch it. Anyways, my cousin, that same cousin who said all that, was the one who put me onto Curb like a decade and a half, like when it first came out.
Okay.
I watched it, whatever. Now that I work a lot at night or whatever, I need something to play in the background. So I usually watch shows that are things that I've seen before, because if it's something new, you kind of have to pay more attention. So it needs to be something that I've seen before. And I was watching it, and literally that exact scene happens in Curb Your Enthusiasm. Somebody spills water and the mother-in-law says, "Oh, someone should get a sponge." And Larry David is there. He's like, "Why someone? Why not you?" And I was like, this whole time I gave my cousin credit for, and he was the one who put me onto Curb. I mean, he took the thing and he applied it, but still, I actually owe my whole business to Larry David. So if you're listening to this, Larry David, thank you for that show and for putting that.
We're gonna tag him for sure.
We're gonna tag him. We're gonna put him. We're gonna send this to him and send it to his manager and see if he'll listen.
He's gonna get a customized blanket with his name in Tamil.
Larry David, I'll hook you up. Anyway, so that was basically why I started. Sometimes people will like send me DMs and be like, I really want to start a business. I just don't know what I want to do. They just know I want to do a business. And so what I tell them is, think about what you complain about in a day. Just like wake up in the morning and just kind of track your thoughts for a day, and then write down anything that kind of annoys you, or anything is like, why don't they do this? Or why don't they have this? And those are really great starting points. Then you go home and Google and realize half of them probably do have a solution. It doesn't, like now everyone can kind of has the opportunity to grow quickly because we have so many resources available to us. But I think that, following along what you complain about can really help gain ideas for how you want to build a business. Or the other thing that you can do is look at businesses that you really like and find a gap in the market, or a gap in a community that doesn't have it. So I kind of did both, I think. Personalized blankets have been around for well over a decade, but it was typically like a white person Etsy thing. And so I brought it over to a South Asian community. I personally don't know of many or any other brands like this that are South Asian owned for like personalized blankets. That was my first product. But also I took something that I was complaining about, right? Like I didn't have designs that were personalized to my culture, to my religious culture, my heritage, and my language. And so I think I took both. I found a gap in the market and I found a like something that annoyed me, and then I did something about it. So I think those are like the best ways to come up with ideas for a business if you're looking to create a business.
I know you make it seem very easy that you took that step. So you said like in that episode, it's like, why don't somebody do it? Why don't that person be you?
Literally.
But the fact that you did it, I don't know. I feel like you're understating yourself because I've been around a lot of people that say, "Oh, I want to do this or that," but like I talked to them a year later, 2 years later, and that thing
Yeah.
that's a big issue, they still haven't done anything. And to each their own. Maybe like it was a fleeting thought, but you
Yeah.
actually took this, whatever, like this interaction, this thought, and you turn into action. Like I feel like you're unconsciously, you maybe just did it without knowing, but what made you like actually take that step and like there's a lot of work, like you have to build the site, you have to like create all these processes. It's not easy doing what you did, so there
Yeah.
must have been like a motivation to kind of do all this work.
Yeah. And, I'm going to be honest, I don't think initially I ever thought of myself going into full-fledged entrepreneurship. This always was, oh yeah, and that's another thing that we can build on from my Telmo culture interview literally like 2 months ago. A few things have changed. So one of the questions, I don't even know if you were planning on getting into this, but I'll talk about it now. Is that cool?
Let's talk about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about it. Okay. So one of your questions was, do you have any plans to take this on full time? And I was like, oh, that's like ridiculous. We're in the middle of a pandemic. It's not a smart financial decision. My last day of work was actually last Wednesday. And so,
What are you?
yeah, I handed in my 2 weeks, like 2.5 weeks ago. And so, yeah, I've been like self-employed for almost a week now, I guess you could
That's
say.
crazy
I
because
never actually said that, like I haven't even announced it on my social media. So if you heard it here first, I'm
all right, we're
taking
gonna use this in the teaser. We're gonna use this in the teaser. But it's crazy because literally, I think when I read your answer, I was
Yeah,
like, oh, okay. That, I mean,
that
she
makes
seems like
sense.
it's like a very like rational answer. I understand. She's like, nope, I'm not gonna consider it at all. And
Yeah.
literally
And
2 months later,
like
you're like,
2 months later.
it's been a week since you've been like self-employed. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was like a bad decision in a lot of ways, in the sense that, you know, we're in the middle of pandemic. I had a full-time job and I had a pretty successful, like we're doing all right, shop going, right? And another reason why you know, it's a good idea is because, as I said, my husband is also self-employed. He is a wedding photographer in an industry that has been heavily impacted by
Yeah.
COVID. Like just about every wedding he had last year was either completely canceled or postponed to this year. And now, excuse me, he had, I don't even remember how many planned for May that are all getting pushed. And yet we still did it. So, um, and believe it or not, I was on such a roll for sales in the month of March. And then I handed in my 2 weeks, and I kid you not, I had the longest dry spell for sales, like
Wow.
directly after that happened. And I cannot tell you the amount of guilt and regret and fear I sat in for about 7 or 8 days. And like it doesn't seem that long to an average person, like, okay, you felt bad for a week, but like when I say dread, I was like drenched and swimming in it, because this was like, it was almost all on me. And then I took a chance on me, and literally that day was like the beginning of a dry spell. And like March was one of the best months that I had ever had. And then like right when it happened, or like just before I handed it in, was like literally best month by far. And then just like boom, dry spell for so long.
Let me dig into that further, just
Yeah.
because um you're both, I guess you and Anoch are both entrepreneurial in a way, because he has a wedding business, you have an e-commerce
Yeah.
business. So
Yeah.
like you said, they're both variable incomes. And you
Yeah.
guys and you guys have 2 kids, and you guys obviously you live in a home, so you have all these fixed expenses. How did you guys come to an agreement? Like, how do you guys make a decision like that together? So I'll give you the example, like with like my wife, where since we got married, like even before that, she was always risk adverse. I was always risk on.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a constant battle of kind of explaining my position. She was like the first person, like almost like my first investor in a way, where I had to convince her, hey, like here's the life choices I want to make. And then I had to get her on board. So there's certain compromises I had to make until I got to a point where I could focus on my business full time.
Yeah.
But that took like a lot of time, a lot of disagreement, a lot of like more
100%.
pain than I can like, not pain in a bad way, but
Yeah,
like
no,
in a
no,
good
I
way.
understand. Yeah.
So tell us about like that process for you guys, whatever you want to share.
I was pretty fortunate in that factor because I was the Aravind then, and then
Okay.
Anu was the Claudia. But in the sense that I was always like, let's go for it, right? Even for Anu with photography, he was kind of on the fence, and then I was like, and he was a full-time accountant. He was a senior accountant. He graduated in finance. He did the whole thumb up thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He did it right, and then you know he wasn't happy in his job, and then I was like, why are you doing it, right? Like, if you're not happy, you spend more time at work and at your office than you do with us or like, when I said us, it's me and my dog at that point, but like, if you're not happy, what is it all for, right? And so he quit, and then he started up, and it was fine because I had my full-time job, and I was like, I think a lot of it has to do with, like you said before, confidence, right? Like I had absolute confidence that he would do well. There's no denying he's an extremely talented photographer.
Yep.
He is a very nice guy. So customer service wise, just making sure
He's
that
easy. He's also easy on the eyes, but continue.
which certainly helps for a photography. But yes, he is easy on the eyes. But no, I knew that he had the skill and the talent to succeed on the photography front, and I was confident in my ability to run the business. So in the beginning, for the first few years, up until I was 5 months pregnant with the last time I shot a wedding, I was 5 months pregnant with Arjunan, and I shot with him, so I knew that I could keep us on track in the beginning. I knew that I could, I get along pretty well with people, and I could talk to brides, and I'm very organized. A lot of them loved how I would give them like tips and insider info and be like, don't do this, and you better do this now or else you're going to regret it. So I knew I had a lot of confidence in us. Basically, I didn't really worry about being able to do it successfully. Did I think that it might take some time? Yeah, sure. But I also had, as I said, confidence in us. And we also had my full-time income, steady income coming in. So, but he actually quit after getting 2 paid weddings, and that was it. And then I was just like, okay, just quit. Like I told him to quit before, but he's just like, no. And I was like, no, we got 2, we got it, it's in the bag, let's do this. And then
That's awesome.
and that was it. So me having to convince him to quit was even harder than me having to convince him for me to quit, surprisingly, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, blah blah blah. I also was not the happiest at my job. When I went on mat leave with Meenakshi, they did a reorg. I used to be an advisor in an analytics group. And then, and I worked for a crown corporation of the provincial government. And so I was in the analytics group. I was an advisor. I loved my work. I used to pour over data and just make advice, like give advice, be like, no, we should do this. No, this is a bad idea, or, organize it in a nicer way or a digestible way, right? We would make like infographics and stuff for people who don't care about the nitty gritty and be like, if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. And so that was my job before. And then during my mat leave, there was like a new CEO shift, and then they always do a full reorg of the company, and our group kind of got split up, and I moved into a different group, and I feel like they didn't really know what to do with me. So for like a full, and I went back in December of 2019, and December nothing happened. So essentially January 2020, and then we were out of the office by March 13th or whatever it was, 2021. I'm sorry, 2020, just 2 months later. So I didn't even really get into a groove with my group before we went on quarantine, or not quarantine, but work from home, whatever it is. And so I don't think I ever really found my groove within that group. my boss was really nice. I had no like issues. My team was really good, hardworking, but I didn't feel good. Like I didn't feel like super happy, super motivated. And I like that feeling. As a person who built one business and then started another, as you can imagine, I need fulfillment in my work. And so I had already started Her Sun and Stars. And then I guess it was just like, no, I'm done. Like I just want to spend that time working on something that I'm much more passionate about. And if I dedicate that time, I think that my business will be more successful.
And since the 1 week that you've kind of,
No, it's been
been
like
off,
3 days, 5 days,
3 days.
business days.
But how did you feel like that first day when you were supposed to be doing your other, like, what would have been your normal 9 to 5 job,
Yeah.
and you're working on your business instead? What did that feel like? What was that first day like?
I wish I could give you this really inspiring answer of like weight lifted off my shoulders. This feels amazing, but I think I was just too concentrated on making proofs that I didn't really like. Unfortunately, I'm a person who had like this really long list of like milestones. And I realized up until I handed in my 2 weeks, I would just put down the date that I fulfilled that milestone, like, hit 1,000 followers on Instagram, got my first sale out of the country, got my first, whatever it is, right? Got my first celebrity shout out,
Yeah.
like all of those have dates on them. And it was just like, you check it off and I just moved on. It almost didn't really register. And I think that's a bad habit. I think like, I have a friend who really said that I should celebrate all of the milestones, no matter how small it was. And so one thing, I think more than the first full day off or out, the day that I handed in my 2 weeks was far more of a weight lift for me than anything. Yeah, I think and it was huge. It was monumental. There was two things that happened that day and it was a sales target. I hit a pretty good sales target that day too. See, that's the thing. I handed in my 2 weeks, and I literally hit a sales target that day, and it was like mind blowing. I was so happy, so proud of myself, and I was like, that day I bought myself a little cake, a little 1-person size cake, and I enjoyed it. And then like I went on a dry spell and got 0 sales for a while. It's like, did you just make the biggest regret? Like, did you just do the dumbest thing ever?
I feel like that's what entrepreneurship is. I feel like it's this constant
Mhm.
journey of, oh yeah, that was amazing. And then like twice as many of those lows were like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why don't I
Yeah,
just get a job? Like, why am I doing
yeah,
that's what I
totally.
that's what I feel about entrepreneurship. As you were talking, I thought of two things. So you talked about confidence.
Mhm.
And like actually no, first thing I want to talk about is we talked about it off air, but I want you to like talk about it here. You talked about milestones
Yeah.
and you talked about your first celebrity shout out. Let's hit on that because that's a big one. And she's a big one
I
in the global family.
know. I love her.
In your Tamil culture article, it was so funny because I reread the article. I was like, you mentioned her as one of the people that you admired, and I was like,
Yeah, I did.
wow. 2 months later, she got a shout out from her. So let's talk
I,
about that.
about Maitreyi Ramakrishnan. I love her. Yeah, I mean, I just woke up and it was like the best way to wake up. Um, I think she was shooting in LA when the package got to her, and then somebody, we actually have a mutual friend who I love dearly. I'm not going to say who it is because then y'all be harassing her, or not like the people would might be. And so we have a mutual friend who is amazing and just was like the middleman who got it from me and gave it to Maitreyi. And she said that, Maitreyi came in at like 1:30 in the morning, and by 2 o'clock this is already on her page, and she said she was really excited and she was so sweet. Like I totally made a fool out of myself in front of Maitreyi. Like I gushed over her, I fangirled over her. This girl's like half my age, and I was gushing, like just nonstop spewing like all of this admiration for her. And she was so graceful about it. And I'm sure she is probably used to a lot of praise, but really, like truly, that she is quite phenomenal in so many ways. Like she's remarkable for a person who is that age to have that kind of insight, that kind of perspective, that kind of maturity, that kind of empathy for people. you know, as a person who is a female minority in Hollywood, a lot of people, I assume, and I see, think twice before posting a lot of things, and with reason, you know, like it's their career. I wouldn't judge them one way or another for posting or not posting about anything, but she is relentlessly, unapologetically, amazingly authentic. Like she has her beliefs, she has her stances, and she uses her platform to speak not only about, you know, issues for marginalized Tamil people in Sri Lanka, but everywhere, right? She doesn't even pick a side. Anyone who is suffering from injustice, I feel like I've heard her talk about just about every marginalized group. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal. Truly, she's remarkable.
Yeah, she uses her platform for good. And like for those of you that like don't know, like we interviewed her for like TC, and
Mhm.
this is before she kind of became, you know, the well-known, like everyone like had more of a household name.
Baby.
But I feel like the person, at least what I see on social media, it seems like that same person that, you know, I got to briefly talk to that day. So that's pretty remarkable that you can kind of go through that kind of fame gain and, you know, still be yourself, which is really hard to
Yeah,
do,
and
I
it's
think.
huge, right? Like
Yeah.
Never Have I Ever
Uh,
is a huge show on Netflix. Like people are waiting for season 2. So
yeah. So
yeah, yeah, she still seems pretty down to earth. Like even after I creepy like fangirled all over her, she handled me with such kindness and grace and so much humility, and she was so humble. Yeah, she's great.
that's amazing. I mean,
Mhm.
like you got to celebrate a win like that. And on all your other wins, I feel like
Yeah,
it's true. And oh, I think I made the comment about, I think it was like, I knew you're goal oriented because I believe you used to share like these, like this,
my
like
New
white,
Year's list.
no, like your whiteboard list of like all the things you had to do. And I remember like one of them was like clear the garage and like
Yeah,
some like four other things. So
yeah, yeah,
I think you put it out there that you're very goal oriented. I think that's great. I think
yeah.
if you don't set goals, you don't know, you don't have a direction. So I don't think setting goals is bad, but I
I
think
agree.
I'm the same way where I set goals, but once I hit them, I'm like, all right, let's just do the next thing.
Yeah, we
And
just kind of move on, which is not good.
it's not good. You gotta like enjoy it a bit more. So,
Yeah. You should
and
get into that habit too. You
I,
should tell
oh,
my creator, oh, I'm bored of having thumbnail culture. Let me just move on to thumbnail date. I'm bored of thumbnail date. Let me just move on and start a podcast. Oh, right in the middle of pandemic. Oh, and I got twins. And oh, like just I'm bored. Let me just start something new out of it.
I'll clarify. I wasn't bored. The reason I started the Telmo Creator is I felt like one thing is I feel a goal of mine is, you know, we're talking about goals. A goal of mine has always been to create like a roundtable discussion type show like for years, and I just sat on it, and I was like, podcasts are here. Like I don't need to do a roundtable right now. Let me just interview interesting people that I know, and I want to practice um creating content. So that's why I started doing interviews or
Oh,
like
nice.
coming up with questions because I feel like somebody said just try to create content as an exercise for a year so that you can learn to be more interesting or like learn how to communicate pieces of information in an interesting way to people. So I
I
was like,
think
let me
we
just go through this
talked about
exercise.
this
Yeah.
before.
Sorry.
I
Yeah.
think we talked about the actors roundtable. I feel like I sent you a link, but
Yes. Yes.
you said,
Yes.
no, this is actually something I've had in the works, right? This is years ago.
Yes. Yes. So I
Yeah,
just
you
sat on it. I
talked
just
to me
sat on
about
it.
this for a while. Yeah, I
So
remember that.
so eventually I'm envisioning like all the interesting people I talk to, say it's like you or like somebody else. I'm like, oh, I think Tanya and this person and me in a room or like in a
Yeah,
virtual room would have an interesting discussion about these topics. So eventually
totally.
that's kind of like the next step in the Talmud creator.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome.
and I feel like, you know, obviously I'm doing Talmud culture, but I'm doing the Talmud creator because I wanted something that I could do stuff with and not get in trouble or create trouble for like the main brand. Like I wanted to, so like, you know, I might say something or do something. I don't think I
Yeah,
will, but you know, just
yeah,
that's kind of the reason for kind of doing it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. And I would say that, you know, going back to something I said earlier, you're filling a gap, right? Like I don't
Yes.
know too many. I can think of maybe one or two max. No, probably just one other Tamil podcast off the top of my mind. So that means it's like a gap, a huge gap, right? Like usually the podcast industry is very saturated. So yeah,
Uh,
definitely,
Well, it's
definitely.
interesting because there is like somebody that I like I know them, but I don't know them well.
Okay.
and they had actually said, "Hey, we actually found your podcast by accident." I was like, "What? How'd
Oh,
you find my podcast?" They're like,
yeah.
"Oh, we were looking for Tamil podcast, so we typed in Tamil, and I
Oh,
guess
that's
because they're
hilarious.
based in Canada, they're like, your podcast was the top," and I was like, "Oh, that's so
Oh,
cool."
wow.
So I
You
mean,
didn't even
that
know that.
yeah, I'm like, that's like it was like in Spotify, so like that for me was like a small win that I was like,
That's huge.
as soon as I found it, I was like, I like told Claudia already, I was like, "Oh, this is so awesome." So I
Yeah,
yeah. So anyways, that's that. I'm just sharing that with you.
that's awesome.
Um, Something I want to dig further into your business was, I'm sure people are curious, and you can share whatever you like, but how long did it take you when you started your business to when you got your first sale? And like, what are some of the goals you have revenue wise, or maybe not revenue, maybe like share it in a way that you're comfortable sharing, but like some of your goals,
Yeah,
and then some of the challenges you faced like during this, starting the business to you're making sales now, but now it's like it's your livelihood now. So
yeah,
talk
very
about that.
different.
Yeah.
Very different. So, like from the start of my business to my first sale was probably like an hour,
That's
which is not,
crazy.
yeah, but I don't think that goes to my credit or my entrepreneurial credit. That goes to the fact that I already had an existing audience, right? Like I don't think that would have been the case had I not had Tanya Yoganathan the page at that point, or had I not had a husband who has like a 30,000 following, I did really well sale wise right in the beginning. The only problem with my product is that you cannot create in bulk ahead of time and then sell.
Mm,
And so I have to amass orders first because every blanket is customized until now. Now we have a few non-personalized options as well because I had too many people coming to me that needed quicker turnaround than we could handle. And they're like, oh, I'm going to go visit a newborn baby. I want to give this, but your turnaround is like 6 weeks. I can't wait that long. I need something now. So we got a few, but I really wanted to concentrate on customization. And so sorry, we get orders and then we send it to them, right? And there's a big lead time in between. And in the world of Amazon Prime 2-day
mm,
delivery,
yes.
nobody wants to wait 6 weeks to get something that they paid for now. And so that's a really hard thing. And the harder thing is that COVID really impacted me because we had issues with fabric and getting a hold of fabric. And when the first fabric came through, it wasn't what I had ordered. And so it pushed out a further delay. And I had this dilemma initially of, do I just create it on this fabric and hope for the best? Or do I push out another 6 weeks, I think, or maybe even closer to 8 weeks actually, and do it the way I wanted to do it. And then that's what I did. I waited the 8 weeks. I totally am happy that I did it because first impressions are so important. And I think if you settle on, you can probably settle in other areas, but not on the quality of your product, because that is what's going to drive people to reviews more than what people can buy online reviews. They can buy more star ratings, they can pay people to go on their site and leave reviews, but you can't buy someone's word of mouth when they say it to their friend, like, oh my god, I received this and I love this, right? Like I can't go into those conversations and try to influence those beyond whatever they say. So those initial reactions are so important. And I know we live in a very digital world, but I will never downplay word of mouth. Word of mouth is hugely influential. And I think it's undervalued and underappreciated, the amount of power and impact a truly satisfied review can do for your business. And I think I've gone off way off from what your initial question
No,
was.
no, this is great. No, I was gonna
I'm
dig
trying to
for.
trace, I'm trying to trace my steps back. But what was your initial question now?
I think it was like, what are some of the goals you have for revenue, or like maybe a goal that you're comfortable sharing that's like numbers. I feel like people like hearing numbers. And
People
also,
like hearing.
and also I think around challenges like I want to come back to it eventually, but that challenge you mentioned of in the world of Amazon Prime with 2-day delivery, because
Yeah.
I just had a conversation with Claudia about this. Like, she's like, I love, she never used to use Amazon. Now she's like, I love Amazon. I know we're supposed to support the small businesses, but I love just getting my stuff in 2 days.
Yeah,
And
right?
so,
Like,
so how do you compete?
how do you
How do
compete?
you compete against that with, like, a customization business where you might need 4 to 8 weeks to kind of deliver? How do you do that?
Yeah. Oh wait, oh, now I remember what I wanted to say. And this is better for what the people want. They want to hear about the nitty-gritty business side of
Yes.
it, right? So the other problem is, let's say I get an order. Let's say you order a blanket today, right?
Okay.
It's not like, it doesn't take that long for your blanket to get made and turn around. Let's say my manufacturer can do it in about 2 to 3 weeks. So you should be getting it in half the time. The other problem you got to think about is manufacturers are not going to do your blanket one at a time as your blankets come in one at a time. They have minimum order quantities, right? You'll hear it. They call them MOQs. And so you got to fulfill, like, I've had quotes from different manufacturers of like how many they will do for me in one batch. And so it's this constant kind of dilemma between, okay, I want to say less time, but if I say less time and I don't get enough orders in that time, I'm not going to fulfill my MOQ for my manufacturer.
Mm.
And then I'm going to have to give a very disappointing email to my customers, which I don't want to give. And I luckily have not had to give so far. But the only reason I haven't had to give that is because I leave a really big buffer in my turnaround time. But the problem with doing a really big buffer in a turnaround time is the Amazon conundrum, right? Like,
Yes.
people want it now. So they're like, I don't want to wait 8 weeks in order to get this. So screw you, you're not going to get my sale. I'm going to go to Amazon, or I'm going to go to the store that has my gift readily available. So I just lost a sale there. I could gain the sale if I lie or if I eschew the truth a little bit, but that is business practice. I bleep myself out so that you don't have to bleep me out. That is a very, very bad practice, because once you get that reputation, I feel like it's really hard to take that tarnishment away.
I agree.
So I am always under the mindset of under promise, over deliver, right? A person is far happier if you say it's going to take 8 weeks and it ends up taking 7 weeks.
Yes.
Right? Even if you're 1 week earlier, or even if, let's say you said it was 5 weeks and you ended up giving it in 6 weeks, they will still be pissed at you compared to if you just said 8 weeks and you gave it in 7.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So always, if that can be any advice, I realize, I recognize that under promising can seem disheartening because you might lose them. I remember even trying to convince Anu in the beginning, right? When we did our contracts for wedding photography, we have turnaround time there, right? And the turnaround time is 6 months for him, right? And he's like, yeah, but I don't like, Tanya, don't write 6 months. People don't like to hear 6 months, write 3 months, right? He's like, I do them within 2 or 3 months. So like, why are we going to write 6 months? I was like, just write 6 months. Because if you write 6 months and give it in 3 months, they're going to be so happy compared to if you write 3 months and give it in 3 months, right?
It's
Plus,
true.
if something fucks up, then you could still have time for it later, right? And he's like, yeah, but if other people are promising 3 months, like I might lose it. I was like, then you lose it. But at least the ones who you have are really happy. And then they will go tell people who will also come to you. I was like, and that motherfucker loves to go around telling people I have never gone over my turnaround time. Like other photographers might take forever, or like you'll hear bad stories about like not delivering this, not delivering that, whatever. And he loves to flaunt the fact like, oh, well, yeah, the only reason that you ended up delivering everything on time is because you left yourself grace period. And that goes for everything, right? That goes for everything in your business, whether you're trying to figure out your profit margins, your costs. Like if you think your cost is $50, add in another 20%, because you know what? I added in that 20% and I still underestimated my costs. The amount of hidden fucking costs will kill you. and your margins are not going to be as big as you think in the beginning. You think your margins are going to be one thing, and then they get cut because there's so many little things that came into play. And I know you're going to ask like what. So like, okay, blankets, right? Let's talk blankets. So there's like your fabric costs there, and that depends on your manufacturer. Like some people will have like their manufacturer just do everything. Some people are like, no, I want you to use my fabric kind of thing. And so you have your fabric, you got your printing, you got some places charge for cutting and then sewing. You have like labels that go onto your blanket because there are labeling acts. There's like the CTA, the Canadian Textile Labeling Act, or CTLA or something. I don't know. But like you have to have certain things printed on your fabrics. Speaking of regulations, there's so many costs about like having an HST number, having registering your business, legalizing your name, getting a bank account. There's a lot of hidden costs. And then so you get your blanket, then you have to put it inside a slip. You have to put in a thank you card or a product care card. Some people put in like a sticker on top. Like all of those little things really start adding up. If you wrap it in tissue, some people get logos on their tissues. Or, you know, if you're cheap like me, you just buy the tissue, you get a stamp, and then you stamp your own tissue to make it look a little more legit. You might get cards that you write on. Do not forget about influencer packages. That cost me thousands of dollars in my launch. I did not pay any of the influencers, but their packages alone cost me thousands.
But I love the idea of what you just said though, which is you talked about it for business, but I apply it for my personal life. I read an article that says happiness is the difference between expectations versus reality. And it applies to business as well. Like for me, I try to set the expectations really low,
okay,
for myself personally and in business.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then if I beat those targets, like you said,
It's great.
if you tell somebody 3 months and you deliver 3 months, they're like, so what? Thanks for
So
doing your job.
yeah.
But if you tell them 6 months and you give it to them in 3 months, they're so happy.
Yeah.
So I everything you said, even with your costs, like you said, there's so many things that kind of add up that you don't realize it,
And
especially
you think
at
it's
the beginning.
like minuscule, right? Like you
Yeah.
think it's so small. You're like, oh well, it's just an extra like $150, and that's but you know, an extra $200 that happens like 10 times over is a couple
Yes.
$1,000s, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know about you. I don't like throwing out $2,000. I
And,
don't care, you know.
and as you're talking about it, like I realized what my question was, because you talk very confidently, like you said, like you have confidence. That's like maybe a superpower of yours. Um, but
Hope it's not arrogance, right?
no, I mean, there's a fine line, but I don't think you crossed it yet.
Yet.
So the question I had was, you're
Hmm.
confident, but obviously everybody has their insecurities. So
Oh,
what are some things that you're insecure about?
why did I quit my job? That was initial. And then like it was so funny. So I talked about the gap and that like I went on a dry spell for a while. And then it was like when I came back hard. Like whatever. It was like something just like a light switched, and then it just like it made up for it and then some. So thank God, knock on wood. I'm probably jinxing myself right now. Insecurities. I think because of my experience being public in the social media world, one of my biggest insecurities is like, what are they saying? Like, what are they saying about me? Anytime, you know, and it's so silly, right? Because I some people say, what do you love about Instagram and what do you hate about Instagram? The feature that I hate the most out of them about Instagram is the fact that you can see how many people have shared your story because
Oh, right.
that
Yeah.
I automatically assume people are just sending stories to their friends' DM and talking me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is like my biggest insecurity, because I was just like, well, if it was something nice, why wouldn't they just say it to me? Right? Like
Yeah.
if it was something, but it could be something good too, because I don't know about you, but I send DMs to I send stories to my friends all the time saying, oh my God, this is so smart. Oh my God, this is so creative. Oh my God, this is so cute. Oh my God. And when it's the kids, it's so easy to just dismiss it and be like, yeah, they probably just think, the kids say jokes and they think it's adorable or something like that. But sometimes there's like these very obscure stories where I'm just like, what on earth would the value be in sending this story to a friend? And if I can't find any sort of value, I'd be like, yeah, they're talking like, that's all I can think of. And so I think that kind of insecurity is huge for me. Or like, I don't want to say this term because I feel like it's thrown around a lot now, but I don't know how else to call it, but they call it imposter syndrome.
Yes.
That you are so fearful that people are going to find out you're not as hot as you think you are, your blankets aren't that great, or like, like your products aren't as cool as, and like what happens when that day comes. I think that is like envelops me some days. It really does. I get really caught up in that cycle of mentality of what if people think that these blankets aren't that great, and like, they invested money into this and I've scammed them out of their money. Then I feel it. I was like, nah, that's stupid. My blankets are no, like seriously, right? Or like, you make marketing materials like TikToks and reels and stuff, and they're like, yeah, she's not that funny. Or like, do you know what I mean? You get caught up in thinking that at some points you're really confident. You're like, okay, I am good at X, Y, and Z. I'm terrible at A, B, and C. But maybe some days you start thinking, maybe you're not that good at X, Y, and Z. And it's just like a handful of people who have been lying to you your whole life because, you cook them food or you keep them alive and you sustain them, and they have to say these things to you, and you're not really that great, right? And I think that's probably one of my biggest insecurities.
Now as a parent, I can kind of like, you're obviously a parent before me, but I was like, you launched the business like after you became a parent. Like I started stuff before, and I was like, it was hard. I can't imagine how you did it after. So like,
well, how are you doing it now? You started this while you have twins. How is that for you?
But I feel like this is different. I feel like it's almost like for myself, like you are selling products, have end customers, versus me. Like this is something, whether like one person listens or like 1,000 people listen, I'm going to be doing. So like I'm doing it for myself, and I hope people obviously resonate, and people have been resonating with it. But I feel like it's totally different than like launching a business where like you have to build a site that's a certain way that customers
and you have like deliverables and
Yeah.
deadlines. No, I can understand, but like that's not to downplay. Like you got twins, how are you holding up? How are you doing it?
I would
Why
say
don't you tell the people what they want to know out of it?
all right. I would say, like, I think we were talking about it before, but I think the first 3 to 4 months were understandably tough because these are our first kids. We didn't have the benefit of like learning with a kid before this, so we got thrown into the deep end with like 2 kids right off the bat. But I think but the thing is, like, both of our personalities were very process oriented. We're like sleep is a big priority because we're like, sleep. If we don't get sleep, we've heard from other parents try to figure out how to get sleep. We're like, all right, let's just research and figure it out. So we made that a priority, and like it took us 4 months to like get them to cooperate, but they finally started cooperating, and knock on wood, hopefully they continue cooperating. But yeah, I would say it's been challenging for sure. Some days I'm like, this is so repetitive, so boring, but then there's moments of like cuteness, or they do something and I'm like, okay, it's like a business. It's like there's a lot of work for very little reward. But I can see why people want to be like, I guess I wouldn't like, no, I would have not understood what they're talking about until now that I've experienced it, where I'm like, this is so hard, why do people do it? But then like your daughter or your son like do something funny or cute, or they smile at you, like, yeah, it's I can see why it's worth it. So
you get Tamil people, like Tamil parents coming up to you, be like, oh, you got one boy, one girl, you set.
I've heard the term. I've never
$1 million family.
Yeah, $1 million family.
I never heard that until I had Meenakshi, but I only heard that then. Do you hear that?
I hear that all the time, and I was like, I've never heard of this term before. And they're like, then they explained it to me, and I was like, oh, cool.
Okay. $1 million family, mom, dad, boy, girl. I'm like, I was totally ready to have another boy, and I would have been. And people like when I was pregnant with Meenakshi, there's just like, oh, hopefully it's a girl. And I was like, I don't know about you, but I love my first kid. If I had another one of my first kid, I'd be like, thrilled. And the
Yeah.
amount of sass that girl has, like,
Oh, that's my daughter for sure. Like
yeah,
but I like that she has sass. I feel like
yeah,
that's gonna be
you're
like
like,
it's
she's
a
gonna be
strength.
strong.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I like
awesome.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, so long story short, doing okay, but I mean, I feel like we're so like there's things we complain about, but like honestly, I feel like I'm so privileged. Like I'm sure I think you feel the same way, where I'm so privileged where I could work from home. Like I have like a lot of the basics. I can, order Amazon products 2-day delivery. I press a
Without
button with Uber Eats
life.
if we're too lazy to cook.
Yeah,
Like I
I'm
open my door, my condo door, and like I see packages of food. Like it's
done.
crazy. Like it's
Yeah,
like
100%.
it's definitely difficult, but I feel like also
It
I
could
have a
have been
lot
a
going.
lot harder,
It could have been a lot worse. So
a lot worse. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so we'll touch on the subject really quickly, but we talk about on the subject of taboo, like subject matters. I feel like money is like that one thing that I feel like people in the Tamil community are like so uncomfortable talking about.
I don't think it's
Uh,
just the Tamil community. I think just people in general don't talk about money.
but I feel like I've read a lot of articles where like entrepreneurs or like people they freely talk about money because I feel like the viewpoint of money is I look at it as a tool. Like I don't feel like obviously you don't talk about how much you have or like rub it in people's faces, but it's like money is a tool at the end of the day. It's like a capture of like somebody like really phrased it well. I think it's like units
So
of
how much you
time.
make out of it then?
I'm not gonna talk about that. Not that
Ah,
I don't make that much. I mean, but I invest well, so that I'll say.
okay.
Uh, so how do you feel about money? How easy, how is it talked about within your household, with your circle of friends? And at a high level, like what kind of things do you invest in? Just share whatever you're comfortable.
So straight up,
Yeah.
I am one of those people who is absolutely like I'm super good. So remember how I said I'm really confident, I'm really real about like what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are.
Yes.
Just as much as I will toot my own horn about how organized I am, how thorough I am, how like dedicated I am, how working I am the worst. Like I'm the biggest noob when it comes to adult financial literacy.
Mm.
Don't ask me questions about investments. Don't ask
Yeah.
me questions about taxes. Don't ask me to like pensions, RSPs, RES, like all of those. It's just like what documents do I need to just sign and hand over? Just like don't screw me over is what I want to tell someone. Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
Um, terrible. I am terrible with that. Real money, like right in front of me, I can manage it, I can save it, I can budget it, I can do all those things. But like investments, like when we had to do our mortgage, I was like terrible. And I think it's just because I have zero interest. I think when I'm interested, I like to research, I like to find out or whatever. But investments,
What
mortgage rates, like all
why do you think you have like no interest in any
I
of that?
don't know why. I just
Okay.
don't. I just
Mm.
don't. Like I've always I've always just not been interested. But I really think that it would be beneficial to teach financial literacy in high schools. Like I don't know why they aren't talking to you more about investments or about how to do your taxes, about like dude, I'm 35 this month, like this week. What day is it? It's the 19th. In
19th, yeah.
days,
Wow,
five
5 days.
days, I'm turning 35. Like, I still don't know how to do my taxes. My mom did my taxes up till now. And only this year I'm like looking for someone because like I just want someone who has had experience in e-commerce. Is my first time. I want to make sure like I've done everything or getting everything back that I can get back. I still haven't done my taxes April 19th. But I'm like the worst. I have like zero interest. Um, even when I quit my job, they were telling me about how like HR was telling me about how I can go on my life insurance policy that they have at the thing and how I can continue at the same plan. But They can transfer stuff over, like just all right over my head. And then like none of it computes. I have no idea. All I did was go up to other people at my office before and be like, which plan am I supposed to do? And they're like, do this one and top up your payment that you put in so that the company will match even more or something like that. And I just signed the paper blindly, trusting like 5 coworkers that I truly trust. I was just like, okay, they won't steer me wrong. And I just signed it. I was just like, here, take it. So yeah, I am positive that I have not fully capitalized on our savings because they are not invested well at all. And so that needs to really change. And I have no idea, and I have no interest in stuff like this. Luckily, Anu does. He has some of our funds invested. I could pull him in on the call if you want to talk to him about it.
No, I'm just super fascinated by that, because I feel like the reason I'm fascinated with money now is that two things. I think up to like maybe 7 years ago, I was horrible with money. Like my credit score is horrible. I started my entrepreneurial journey. Like as a result of that, I made some bad decisions just because I was very new. And number two, I think is because even though it's funny because I say that, but even when I was younger, I probably had a head start on financial literacy because my parents didn't really like have strong English. Like my dad, like obviously knew enough to kind of run a business, but I had to help them with
what
like
did he do?
do you know the Samosa Hut or Samosa King? Samosa King.
Oh yeah.
So the restaurant that's beside it
Isn't that
is
like right in the same plaza as Bubba?
no, Samosa King is at Middlefield and
No,
Finch.
it's at Middlefield and
Yeah,
Finch.
Finch,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So they have a restaurant beside that. They bought that restaurant used to be my dad's restaurant.
Oh, no way.
It was called Rico Restaurant or something. I don't even know why
Oh,
he
no
called it
way.
that. So I used to have to help, like not help, but like interpret things like from a mortgage perspective when we
Oh,
bought our
wow.
house, or like look at taxes. Like I had to learn that stuff when I was a young age. So I understood it, but yet I still made horrible decisions like 7, 8 years, up to 7, 8 years ago. So I'm just very curious because I'm very fascinated with something called FIRE. Have you heard of
Okay.
FIRE?
I know the Fire Festival by like Ja Rule, where they scammed a whole bunch of people. And
This is a
is
different.
it
This is
similar to that? Like
it's like
FYRE?
it's a completely different FIRE. So FIRE is financially independent, retire early. So
Okay.
what that means is like basically you live your use your money in a wise enough way where you cut your expenses,
Yeah.
and you basically try to get to a point where
What's
retirement's
the
like
golden age? Is it Freedom 50? Freedom 55?
for
Freedom?
me for me
Yeah.
it's 45.
Yeah, I like
but
that.
but it's not like retiring like what people say where like you're doing nothing. It's like
No.
basically I still have to work,
Yeah,
but
but I'll be
I get to
set
choose,
back.
like where you like you quit your job and like you're like you have the ability to kind of take this risk to kind of do your business. I
Yeah.
want to basically I'm like, I'm like 50% of the way there in the sense that I get to choose what I want to do every day. Like I wake
Yeah.
up and time is the currency that's most important to me, where so like I'm just anyways, that's like a whole like topic, and I was like thinking about
So
doing
wait,
a
do
podcast.
you work full time aside from all of the independent businesses that
No,
you
I
have?
focused on my business, Continue Care. It's like a healthcare business. That's what I do full
Okay.
time.
Okay.
And
And
Telmo
you
College,
own that business.
me and another person own the
Okay.
business.
Got it.
Correct.
Got it.
Yes.
Nice.
And then I work on Tamil culture as like a passion project, but it's trying to make that eventually into something I could do full time. Yeah, because obviously, like you said, I'm the Tamil guy, Tamil dating, Tamil culture. I love what I do for like I love the result of that like endeavor, which
Yeah.
is I get to meet interesting people.
Yeah.
The dating site potentially help people connect that otherwise wouldn't connect. So it's just really connections and relationships are what are important to me. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like I talked a lot. I was trying to get you to talk a lot. So let's get you to talk about your personal legacy. So in terms of your personal legacy, in a few sentences, like how would you want to be remembered by your friends and family?
That's where what I said before kind of comes back to creep up on me, right? Like everyone obviously wants to be remembered in a positive light, but anytime I think of something that I want to be remembered by, it's like, no, you don't deserve that, or no, you're not like this sounds like a pity party right now, but it's like you're not worthy of being remembered in that way, or like you fucked up in this and you did this and you did this. How dare you want to be remembered in any sort of way in this way, right? So I don't like oh, do you watch Parks and Rec?
No, I don't.
Oh my God, Adam, and you
Wait,
two
was
are
was
building
that with
empires.
Aziz? Was that with
Huh?
Aziz? Was that with Aziz? I always confuse
Mhm.
the two. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I didn't watch that. No, but I watched Master of None, which I really enjoyed. So
Master of None. Yeah, that was good.
yeah.
Um, in that show, Ron Swanson, I forget his real name right now, but whenever he makes speeches about people, they're always like purely facts. So I would just rather like, he's like, this is a person, we are all here to celebrate them, let us do that. And then he like do it like, I think that's the only way I can be remembered and probably not feel uncomfortable about it.
Okay, so you feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable about it, eh?
Yeah, I definitely do. But that actually brings me to one of my favorite quotes, which is by Hemingway. And it says, a man dies two deaths in his life. The first time when he's buried in the ground, and the second time when his name is last said.
Oh, that's good.
And
Yeah.
then he says, in some ways, a man can be immortal, which is so true, right? Which brings me to like when SP Balasubramanian passed away last year, I was like devastated. I've never been impacted by a celebrity death. Like,
Mm.
I'll be like, yeah, that's sad, but that's just as much as like someone else to me. But when he died, I like did not expect it, but I crumbled. I cried for days and days over it. But it made me really think about that quote, and like his music is going to be played for like in the rest of time, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And in that way, like as cliche as it sounds, he truly will continue living on, right? Like he has a record number amount of songs done and things like that. So yeah, so anyways, I don't know why I brought that. Oh, because we're talking about legacy and things like
Yes.
that, right? I don't know if I want people to talk about me at the right time. Maybe we'll just like cover the casket and be done. Oh no, I don't want to. I don't want to go in a casket though. I want to be.
Cremated?
Mm-mm.
Decompose, or what's that? Like that new
Yeah,
trend?
like
That new trend?
the
Like the
tree thing.
yeah. Okay.
I want to be a tree.
I want to do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just think I'll donate my organs, you
Yep.
know, like make use of whatever you can. Like if it can help someone, I'm not doing anything with it. So take whatever you can. Just put a picture at the funeral, and then whatever's left, just squish it up into that little pod. And then like if a tree is there, I mean, unless a condo developer comes and knocks it down, otherwise, like I would much rather my kids bring their kids to a tree and be like, oh, you know, like your grandma is buried under here,
Yeah.
than going to like a morbid
Yeah.
graveyard. Like that's me personally. See, that's gonna sound judgy now. People who
No, no.
have their graveyards already plotted and like mapped out and stuff are gonna be like, what's she trying to say about me?
I feel like that's like such a trend, not a trend, but I feel like
The tree pod?
no, not the
Oh,
tripod. The fact that
the
what you
fear
just
of
said.
cancellation.
Well, yeah, what you said about kind of, I feel like people, it's a lost art of people being able to disagree in a good way, or
Civil
like,
manner.
yeah, in like a civil manner where like you can still be friends, or like whatever
Yeah,
relationship you had. I feel like
yeah,
it's such a lost art. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. Like I think I saw a meme about that where it's just like I prefer apples to oranges, and then they're like the other person
Yeah.
like,
I
so what? Now you're saying you hate oranges? No, I didn't say that. It's like
yeah.
like what are we talking about?
I feel like I already know your answer to this. I always ask this to everybody,
Mm.
but this is the last question of the serious round.
Oh, okay, the series.
What's a piece of advice that you would give to your aspiring or fellow Telmo creators? I feel like I already know the answer.
You know why you know the answer? Because it's the same answer that everyone gives.
No, no,
Right?
no.
We're gonna say it on three. 1, 2, 3. Just
Confidence.
no.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we had different answers.
I thought you were gonna say confidence. I thought you seen it.
No,
Okay.
not having confidence. No, you can still be unconfident, but you got
Okay.
to start, right?
Yes,
Like
yes,
if you don't fucking start, nothing's gonna happen. So
yes.
I got my idea in November of 2019, and I waited to start, but I didn't wait that long. I started like really started in January.
Oh,
Just
so
2 months.
2 months. Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
bad.
I sat on it for 2 months before I started. But that sitting is like real waste of time because you don't even know what you don't know until
Mm,
you start. And man, you don't know a lot. Like
yeah,
that when you're starting up a business, there's so much you don't even know. And you won't know that until you start, right?
yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
it's it's a cycle. So if you start, then you realize, okay, I gotta like register my business, and then you I need to open up a bank account. Okay, go open up a bank account. Well, did you register your business? No. Did you register your name? No. Did you do this? Did you fill out this tax form? Did you fill out this and this? You're like, nope, nope, and all these things that you might have known you need to uh open up a bank account, but you didn't know about these 5 other things you need to do, right? And
yeah.
without starting, you ain't never going to know that. Or like you want to start a website. Oh, well, did you register for your domain? No. Did you get a host or something like that? Like, no. Whatever those things are, right? Like all of these things you didn't even know that are expenses or just things that you
Yep.
have to do all only come up after. And so sitting around and dreaming about what your site could be and would be doesn't really matter until you really just start.
You said the what other people have said, but I like the way you said it.
Yeah, thank you. I think you're just being nice. You have to be nice though. I'm a guest on your show. You got to be nice, right?
You're right. I was just being nice. I'm just kidding. um, so that can kind of concludes like the serious part of the. But I think it was still fun. I think it was fun. But now we're
I-
getting to a
oh, did you
new.
think that was fun?
I thought that was
Maybe
fun.
it was fun for you.
Oh wow. Okay. Um, so I had a game called Would You Rather, and I'm going to still use that, but this is called Creator Confessions. So I want to ask you a
Ooh,
few questions. It's meant to
okay.
be like a speed round. So
Speed round. Okay, first thing that comes to mind.
exactly.
Okay.
So favorite Tamil food?
I'm a sapad. Like it's like a meal. Can I say the meal?
Yeah,
Like
sure. Say the meal.
soru, soru, poricha mean, mean kulambu, but with the kulambu put on top of the
Yes.
poricha mean. But
Okay.
that's different from poricha mean kulambu because that like sits and urus inside the kulambu. No, no, no. We need the poricha mean and then we put the kulambu on top. Beetroot curry, kira curry, turam parapu with pudalangai in it. And I need more mulahai and I need some sort of salad. So it could be like carrot chambal, takali sambal, vangaya sambal, achar. It doesn't matter. Katrikai sambal. I will take anything. It has to be one. And I need rasam.
Wow, that was very specific. Okay.
That's like my last meal. Like if I'm
Yeah.
gonna
I felt like
like,
that's what it sounded like. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what it
that's
sounded.
my last meal. I need it all. And it has, yeah, yeah.
Favorite show you're watching?
Does it have to be new?
No, it
Or
doesn't
like
have to be new. No.
of all time would be the Game of Thrones up to
Oh.
season 6 finale, or The Office up to season 6 finale.
Um, fellow Telmo creator you want to give a shout out to?
Ooh, there's a few, but do I have to pick one?
No, you can give them all.
Okay. Kitchen Gorilla, who is fantastic.
Yes.
Honey
Yeah.
Let's Eat, she's a food blogger. She's amazing. Tia Buva, who is phenomenal, great entrepreneur.
Yes.
Very inspiring story. Like she's fantastic. Those okay. I'll stick with 3 for now.
I love it.
Yeah.
Favorite childhood memory?
Like when people ask you about memories, I have such specific stories, and now I feel like they're either embarrassing or like sad or like angry. I'm trying to think of like my favorite memories are just with my cousins. They're all boys, and I was like one girl in like a midst of 10 to 12 cousins that were around the same age. But all of my happy memories are kind of in and around them, and just like whether we're playing like soccer, baseball, or how we had sleepovers for all of summer break together, or we did cottage trips. We went to Virginia. We went, like, I think there's a lot of little memories, but there's not one really that stands out where it was like our Christmas break where like my dad's in a family of 6 and every family hosted their own Christmas party, and every kid, I mean, I was a girl so I didn't get $100 video game, but the boys loved getting their games because like SNES game back then was $100. And it's crazy that like our parents with whatever little they had still provided us such like expensive, costly gifts. And now like I don't see the same way. Like maybe parents spending on their own kids has become a bit more frivolous, but I feel like for other kids, it's not as much as in ratio to what our parents spent. I think, I don't know if it's like more logic around it now or rationale around it now. And maybe back then they're just like, who else is it all for other than for them? And like, you know, we struggle so that they can be happy. So let them be happy. But man, with the little means that they have, our parents truly gave us so much. Like,
Agreed.
Yeah. So yeah, my favorite memory is like kind of all of them, as bad as that sounds. It's a terrible answer for you. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's all gold. Pet peeve.
In what? Where shall I begin? In what? Like seriously? In like just in general? Like I don't like crusty stuff at the top of a ketchup bottle, and I don't like nail scratching on the wall. But if you get real specific, I can give you tons of answers of stuff that pisses me off. I'm highly irritable.
Why don't you pick one? Pick one.
Okay, so you know how I said like no, because this is gonna get me in trouble later. This is gonna get me.
Say in something trouble that won't get you in trouble.
Oh, but then the next question.
All right, that's a good answer. Age you want to retire by?
So I had other financially related goals that I cannot unfortunately we didn't even talk about the milestones that we wanted to talk about, but that's okay. I don't think I got into the juicier ones, but that's okay. Age that I want to retire by, I would like, when I say retire, I mean retire the way you said retire. I still kind of want to work. I don't think I'll be bored at home, right, if I just dip out, but age where I could, let's say if I continued Her Sun and Stars, which I may not, like I started one business and built it to be a successful beast. And once like that was done, I was like, okay, let's just start another one. Maybe I'll start another one. And I have no problem with that. But if we're just talking about Her Sun and Stars, let's just say that's it. And I want to just like step back. Like my idea of retirement for that would be living comfortably, being able to provide for my parents and my in-laws, give a chunk of the money back to causes that I feel are important, and have a nest egg. Like I would be one of those Tamil parents who still pays for their kids like tuition and all that stuff. I know like there's differing views on that, and I see validity on making kids pay for their own, because I think, at least in my personal experience, my parents paid for mine, and I like, part of me feels like maybe if they didn't, I would have taken things a little more seriously and been less my phone is like going nuts. What is happening? Anyways, but I feel like maybe part of me thinks that I took advantage, shamefully, guiltfully, of that sort of generosity. And maybe if it was me working hard and using my own money, I would have taken school a bit more seriously, or I would have, whatever it is, studied a bit harder, been a bit more organized, gone to the library to study a bit less, you know what I mean, and actually studied at home. Yeah. But I will be probably one of those parents who still gives everything to their kids and pay for their wedding and that. So considering all of those things are like taken care of, I would say like between 40 and 45. I would love to be able to be financially sound, in the sense of all of those things would be taken care of. And I would be able to just step back and be like, you know what, I want to launch this product for Her Sun and Stars. And then the minions would get to work. Yeah. And then, and I would want to launch this product and just kind of say it and just oversee it. But again, knowing me, I love the nitty gritty. Like I'm one of those lame. I was even talking to Tia actually this week, and I was talking to her about how much I love she did a story post about how she fulfilled an order after a really long time. And I was like, oh my God, and she's just like, that's not her favorite thing to do. She loves looking at, developing products and this and that or whatever. I was like, no, it's like a guilty pleasure of mine. I love the monotony. I love the mundane. I love just like packing in order and just seeing them all lined up on the table, all neat and done afterwards. So I do like the nitty gritty. I feel like even when I retire, I would still probably be very hands-on, which is bad. But I
I mean, to each their own, yeah.
I
So
get
40 to 45. Okay.
40 to 45. So far, I've done like I have other goals, and so far, so good. So I haven't really even thought about retirement. So until this question, maybe I'll do some numbers tonight and realize maybe 40 to 45 is too ambitious or not ambitious enough. I don't know. We'll have to run those numbers, but off the top of my head, yeah, 40 to 45.
Okay. Celebrity whose life you'd want to experience for one day.
Can I reframe that question, but still give you like a cool answer?
Sure.
Okay. So I was talking to Anu last week, and I was like, one moment where I would really want to be a fly on the wall, like when A.R. Rahman was making 90s songs. I don't want to see a documentary about it, because if you see a documentary, he knows that cameras are in there. You're not seeing it as genuinely as it's unfolding. I want to be a fly on the wall when he made like the first one, when he made Kadal Rojave. I want to be in that room when he gave like SPB that melody and been like, I want you to sing it like this. Do you know what I mean? I want to be in that room. That's what I want.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
The final one is a PSA that you want to leave our audience with. Make it count.
Yeah, no pressure. No, don't doubt yourself. I think that's like if we're talking about creators and people who are listening to this are interested in entrepreneurship. I think that's the biggest thing that I come across, people who just like really doubt themselves. They're like, I don't know if I can do it, or I don't know. Well, you're not going to know unless you try, right? Save up, because it's going to cost more than what you think it's going to cost. Live within your means. That means a lot of different things. That's not just financially, like your means of your energy, the means of your effort, right? Like, don't overspend yourself, because that is like the surefire way to burnout, which is, everyone will go there and go through that, but the less you go there is the better. And I think that was another main reason why I quit my job. All of these are supposed to be short answers, but I guess I can't just give a short answer to anything. I'm sorry.
That's what happens when you're an influencer, but continue.
I can't give a short answer, but yeah, I think that was another reason why I was working my why I quit, because I was working my 9 to 5, and my son is doing virtual school. My daughter is 2 years old. She's still at home. It's stressful. It's time consuming. And then I was like working okay, so you'd work on your 9 to 5 during the day. And we are fortunate enough to have help, but my son was beside me the whole time that he is in school. And we tried, and he's in kindergarten. They need a lot of supervision to stay still and look at a screen, right? They shouldn't even be looking at a screen for 5-6 hours a day, but that's the reality of our situation right now. Kids need social interactions. They need to be with people, and they don't want to sit down for that long at a time. So it's really hard to keep him looking straight for that much time. We even tried putting him into another room, and then I got a letter from the teacher saying, oh, I noticed that Arjuna was in another room today. I just want to let you know that he took some toys, and he was flashing lights at the camera to the other kids. He was making faces right at the camera. He was playing with the buttons and all these things. And I was just see, you can't even try to separate your work from that, right? And so you get that in the morning, and then as soon as work is done, you have hours where you have to actually play with your kids and raise them, and then feed them and bathe them and get them ready for bed and read to them. And then it's 10 o'clock or 9:30, and then you're okay, let's start my side hustle. And I was working till 2:30, 3 a.m. multiple days, weeks at a time. That when I actually quit is when I started going to bed at midnight, and my body just couldn't function that way. It would wake up in the middle of the night. I'm still not back to it. Not even when I quit, but once I actually handed in my 2 weeks, I basically checked out of my job, if I'm being very honest. And, I just didn't, I didn't really, I didn't stay up long. I would go to bed at midnight, but I couldn't. I would wake up like 4 hours later and I wouldn't be able to go to sleep. And then you fall asleep 2 hours after that. And then you're grumpy when you actually wake up, and it's awful. But do you want to ask the question again so I could just give you a short answer and then you can end it off nicely? What was the question again?
I feel like there's some good gems. I feel like I'm gonna have to get some bloopers out of this. The question was a PSA that you wanted to leave your audience with.
Okay, so never doubt yourself.
Okay.
And save a lot. Budget well, whether that's your money, whether that's your time, whether that's your energy and your effort and your heart. Like people will overspend things and then you end up getting burned out. And that is something every entrepreneur or even person probably goes through. And just try and minimize that as much as possible.
I like that answer. That kind of concludes the questions, Tanya. I think you were an awesome guest. I think people are going to enjoy it. I think you said a lot of stuff that, guys, you're going to hear the edited version of this. I think this is one of the few podcasts where I think we'll have to edit a few things as per Tanya's request, and we'll have to kind of see what we can keep in. But I think it was awesome. There's so many learnings. Tanya has a really interesting story. She's an interesting person. So for those of
You're
you,
interesting too.
thank you.
You
But it's
are.
not about me. But it's not about me. It's about you. So don't try to deflect. So for those, for the people that are listening that want to connect with you, pick your brain, just give you like a nice message like you did to Maitreyi, you're their celebrity. How do they do that? What's the best way to connect with you?
They can, I'm pretty interactive on my DMs. That's at Tanya Yoganathan, TANYA.Yoganathan, YOGANATHAN. Or you can find me at hersunandstars.co. So it's her son, HERSUNANDSTARS.co on Instagram, or you can just send me an email. You can find all of that on my Instagram as well.
Awesome. And before we go, just a quick, admin task. So for those of you listening, please give this podcast a 5 out of 5. It really helps increase our visibility on whatever platform you're listening to. So whether that's Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts. And if you could comment, share, and like our stuff on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, that would be great. And if you have any feedback or ideas on future guests or even topics, please reach out to me at hello@thetelmocreator.com. So thank you again, Tanya. And I think people are going to enjoy this one.
I hope so.
Awesome.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for those of you listening, look forward to the next one.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.